Okay, here's one of her recalls indoors. She does amazing inside for me. Um, we started doing it in the backyard a little bit, and it's hit or miss in the backyard, but pretty reliable. It's not reliable yet where I'm adding the verbal cue of the come. So I'm still just using her name. Today I tried it in the front yard, and that video's at the end of this compilation. So you'll see that, and she really struggles with it in the front yard. Um, so it's good to know, so that way we can keep working up to it being harder. We want to start where it's easy, and then move gradually to where it's more difficult. But we don't want to jump the gun. So we're still only doing it in the front yard a little bit and really heavily focusing on it indoors and in the backyard. But that video is later. Okay, so here's just her doing some place work again, same as last time. Again, I haven't added the verbal cue of place yet because we're still shaping the behavior. We're still waiting for her to get on it most of the time. I want to be able to bet money that she's going to pop onto the bed before I add the word. Because again, when we add that word, we're just associating the behavior she already knows with a verbal cue. And she's doing great. She's right on track. She's working really hard. She just hasn't got that pop on yet. And you'll see me as I work. I try to change my footing here and there. I try to take a couple steps back. And all I'm doing there is trying to figure out where my gauge is. Right there, I took a couple steps back. So I'm almost, I would say 8 inches away. And she did great. So the next time I stay same distance, she does great. You'll see here in a minute, I kind of step further back, about a foot or two right there. And this is where she kind of stalls out. So right here, she kind of stalls out there. So that's fine. It just gives me information to where I'm at and how I need to work towards this. So I give her a few seconds with me in this position, and then if she doesn't get it, I have to lure her the next time around. So we're going to restart. The next time around here, I'm just going to step close. I'm going to step on the other side because that also makes it easier. So in that situation, I could have stepped closer and had her successfully do it where I know that she was comfortable with it. Or I could do what I did. I could be a foot away, but be on the other side so she has to step on it to get to me. So I'm always trying to push her to the next step, very slowly though. And if she can't get to it on her own, I need to make a note of that and either step back or try a different execution. But she's doing great. And here in a minute, you'll see I'm going to trade out the raised bed for just that topper to see if it does any difference. And it doesn't. So I can keep doing both. So it doesn't really matter. But I just want to see, some dogs have an easier time with it on a raised bed because it's more of a concrete area to be in. It's more obvious when they're not on it. And some dogs do better with flat things on the ground. So I just play with it. She does equally fine for both. So I'm just going to keep flopping back and forth like I've been doing. And there she goes. She did great. So we're just working through it at this point, and she's on her way. Okay, so here's just a cut to me getting the bed. She does great. I mark and treat her while she's on it, just the same way. I think with flat beds, as handlers, we have to come up with what we're wanting from the behavior. Do we want just her butt on it? Do we require all four paws on it? What do we want so we can be very clear with the training? So right here with her, my requirements are our butt and front feet are on the mat. So here in a minute, she gets on, but her front feet are off. So I actually wait to treat her. Okay, so here we go. I toss out. And then when she comes back, oh, almost. It's coming up. Okay, and here she gets distracted, and all I'm doing is waiting for her to come back. I want her to opt into training. I don't want to have to convince her to be over here. So here you go. So she has her front feet on, but not her back. So since my criteria for this behavior is to be butt on the mat with front paws, that's what I want to make sure that I'm marking, and I don't want to confuse her by sometimes marking that and sometimes not. So that's kind of a handler thing there with flat beds. That's also kind of why I prefer raised beds, so that it's easier for my brain. But again, it doesn't really matter too much. Okay, so here we're going to work on some mouthing stuff again. And this time what I'm doing different is I'm setting out toys. So I'm still playing with what is the best way to get her to come down from mouthing us after a play session. And so here I give her some options. If she has a toy, I go ahead and play with her with the toy and engage with her. I'm being more rowdy than I would with any dog. I really like to play rough with my dogs, but even I wouldn't be this pushy with a dog. So this is a lot. I'm setting the scene, so I wouldn't just shove my hand in dogs' mouths. But I'm trying to get her to do it. So here I say, all done, which I realize is the wrong word. I say enough. There we go. And I'm just freezing. So freezing seems to work very well at my house, but I want to give you multiple options in case it doesn't. And when I freeze, I want to completely disengage with her. Right now I'm pointing out a toy just to see if I can redirect that energy onto the toy. And I haven't had very good luck with it. She'll grab it, but then she gets rowdy and still grabs at my hand. So in my house so far, my best bet is freezing and ignoring. And sometimes when she's mouthing me, I'll freeze and leave my hand in place and wait for her mouth to move off my hand instead of my hand moving out of her mouth. And that also seems to be working. Right there, I got really excited because after she took her after she took her mouth off my hand, she grabbed the toy for a split second. So I really wanted to reward her for that, in case that becomes a better option for your household. But I'll keep playing with it. But at this moment, the best thing so far is when I completely disengage, she usually also disengages with me. Okay, so I went ahead and sped this video up, but it's me working on counter surfing, jumping on the counter, things like that. So you'll see that I asked for an off, but when she didn't give it to me, I went ahead and used my body to body block her. I prefer using my body to kind of block them and using it to push them back versus pulling at their collar. Generally, when we pull on dogs, their reaction is to pull back. So it kind of just creates a tug of war, and it's a little less effective. So I asked for off, used my body to block. Once all 4 feet hit the ground, I marked and treat, yes, treat. And then I periodically treated her on the ground. There's a few more components that go in that I'm going to try to squeeze in here without complicating it. But a couple of things that I look for to treat pretty heavily is sustaining on the floor, but also moving away. So anytime she left the kitchen, I took a handful of treats and just chunked it in that general direction. Because moving away from the kitchen is even better than just sitting at my feet, because she's totally disengaging from the counter surfing. I don't mind dogs in my kitchen as long as they're being polite. So my dog Boom right here, he lays down anytime I go in the kitchen because he knows laying down on the floor, food just gets to me. Getting up on the counter, I don't get food. So I usually like to, once we worked on this for a long time, require behavior from my dogs, and for mine it's a lay. But you can kind of play with that as you work with her. Here she is trying to get him to play, so we're gonna just cut that out. Boop, boop, boop. Gonna use my body again to kind of get in between them. All right, because playing in the kitchen, getting all rowdy, just encourages jumping, whether they're jumping on each other or jumping on the counters. So it's not a good place to be rowdy. And Penny doesn't think so either. Good job, Ellie. Look at her take that correction. She's lovely with the dogs. Penny looks so vicious. Okay, so here she goes. She put her feet back up. So I asked her for a down. She did it. And then I mark and treat. So the other component of this is a little more difficult. So anytime I'm in the kitchen, this is what I'm working. Or anytime I'm around my kitchen, this is what I'm working on. 4 on the floor, treating for good behaviors. Even if I'm not cooking, but I see her walk through the kitchen and walk out without putting her feet up, I'm going to give her treats for that. So I really want to reinforce the 4 on the floor gets you food sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes. Jumping on my counter never gets you food. So what the other component is setting up your day-to-day life so that she's never able to practice the behavior of jumping on the counter and getting food. Because when she does that, it rewards her. If she jumps on the counter and gets food that we left, then she thinks, this is great. I'm just going to keep jumping on the counter because I also get food jumping on the counter. So while they're young like this, we really have to be strict with never leaving any food out. And if we're in a situation where that's not the case and that's not possible, such as having people over for dinner, or I have kids, so I have to leave food out so they can go get seconds during dinner time. And times like that where I can't be watching her, she goes up in a crate. She's just not able to be out if there's food out and I don't have time to supervise. And when she is out, then it's a strict rule that no food at all is left on the counter, because I don't want her to be practicing the behavior that we don't want. So 2 components, really reinforcing 4 on the floor. And there's my dog acting like he doesn't know what he's doing. The joys of puppyhood, they last forever. He's 1 and does incredible in the kitchen, but he still gets up there. So we are still living under the same rules that I'm telling you right now. No food on top of him. If there is food, he goes up. Then see how he settled back down, and that's when he got treated again. So since he's been working on a long time, I didn't treat him right when I asked him down. So I asked him for down. He got down right away, but I didn't treat him for that. I treated him for being down off the counter for many seconds, at least 30, because he understands the concept now. So that's the other part of it, is knowing where they're at. Ellie's young. Ellie's starting this new. So when I ask her off, I'm going to treat her right away for doing it, so she makes that connection. And then as they age and as we work on this, they're going to be required to have their feet down longer. There's other times, though, where he does it and I ask him for off, he does it, and I do treat him right away. But it's kind of just working with them and getting them to understand the concept of this is not a buffet, not for you. Okay, so here we are on a long line walk. Long line walks are great for so many reasons. For her specifically, the reason we did it today was because we had a lot of puppies come for puppy school today. It was real busy, real chaotic. She handled it great. She wasn't getting super stressed out, but I wanted to make sure that she was able to kind of come down from the excitement of drop off. So after all the dogs dropped off, we leashed her up and went out to this field by my house and just kind of let her roam. Sure. It's great for them for exercise because they're able to take a lot more steps than us, right? So we walk fairly slow for dogs, even if we're like speed walkers. So this way they have more leash, so they can kind of do laps around me. They can go back and forth. They go out, they come in, and they're just getting a lot more steps in and we're putting in no more work, if that makes sense. So there's that. There's also the ability to sniff and explore different smells, different textures on our feet, different environments with a lot of space. A lot of times our dogs, it's not safe for our dogs to explore different environments off leash because of obvious reasons. But having them on a small leash, they're not free to kind of explore and then react to their environment how they naturally would. So having them on this long line lets them have more room and space to do that. And she does great. She's amazing on leash. Okay, so another thing that we've kind of run into here is when I go to leash her, she loves to bust out of the door. She's pretty good about waiting behind the door when we're just coming in and out of the front. She's not leashed, but when she knows she's going somewhere, she gets really amped up. So for safety reasons, we're going to work on that. This is up to you on how you want to do it at your home. Yes. Some people have strict requirements. Dogs need to be sitting in a certain place and then released. Some dogs just need to give eye contact to be released. Some dogs just need to be waiting and to be released, and they don't really have to be doing anything except for not moving forward. So it's going to be up to you. Today I started with wanting her to be in a sit with eye contact. At the beginning, I was just waiting for eye contact, but that seemed to be pretty difficult, so we kind of shifted gears. So all I'm doing is waiting. I'm not really asking for a sit. I'm not really saying her name, communicating with her other than just standing and waiting. And then when she offers the sit, then I'm going to go ahead and open the door. And I don't use treats for this because she's really excited to go outside. So being released outside is going to be her reward for the work she's doing. So she's staying in a sit, doing amazing. All I'm waiting for is the slightest eye contact that she's ready. And I'm not using the leash to keep her from going outside. If she was to try to go outside, I would just use my body and closing the door. And then I released her.
Good job, Ellie.
She did great.
Very good girl.
And I'm grabbing some treats because we're going to go work on recall outside.
That was so good, girlfriend.
Okay, so here is how I would take her on a walk if I don't have the time to wait for a sit and wait for eye contact and wait for all these things. And because sometimes it can take me upwards of 15 minutes to get out the front door. And when I'm training, this is my job, so I have all the time in the world. But I realize that our day-to-day is not set up like that. So to keep supporting when we do have the time, I encourage to have her wait at the door. But when we don't, to not kind of ruin the work we've put in, what I'll do is I will require a sit because she's pretty good about it. But before I even open the door, I use her release word as I'm opening the door and then heading out. That way she's still waiting to be released, but I'm not having the door open, standing in front of it, having her practice that self-control. So it's just kind of a quick way to get her out without messing up the work we've done. Okay, so here's our recalls. That one was pretty good. Less enthusiastic than it is indoors, but she still recalled. So I gave her lots of treats, a bunch of treats while she stayed with me. And then when I was ready, I went ahead and released her. Like, oh, done. Okay, go sniff. Okay, so the next few are a little tougher. So I'll kind of talk you through what I'm doing. So I'll say her name, and then it's not responding. So instead of repeating her name, I'm just going to make silly sounds. I'm going to get really excited. I'm going to jump up and down. If she looks at me at any point, if I can get any eye contact, I'm going to run the other way. So here I'm just moving the other direction to encourage that forward motion. Sometimes when our dogs don't come to us, we'll call them and move towards them. And we really should be moving the opposite direction. So here we're going to do it again. Trying to encourage her to sniff in different new locations before I recall her.
Good job.
Okay, so here we go. Ready? No response. So I'm going to keep making those sounds, doing those things, trying to get her attention. I'm not pulling on the leash, but I have stepped on the leash so she can't move any forward. And the second she turned towards me, I ran, marked, and we're running towards the trees. And then she gets some cookies. So we'll keep working on that, and we'll keep making it a little bit more difficult because she is doing so well inside. I want to keep pushing it to eventually have it pretty reliable.